Hello, Kepler families and Kepler students. This is Geoffrey Swait, Chief Academic Advisor at Kepler, and today I am going to give you a tour of our language department. All right, so I head on over to our website, Kepler, live online classical education, empowering families by liberating teachers. And I'll just briefly unpack for you what that means. We don't set the agenda for our classical Christian teachers. They set the agenda for Kepler, which provides much more freedom for the teachers and much more choice for the families. All right, well, here we are on the main page of the site. I'm simply going to click on Languages, and that'll take us straight to all the language options on our site. Oh, look, here's my beautiful face. Here is our current language faculty. Mr. Lucas, Mrs. Harlow, Mrs. Sanders, Mr. Belk, Mr. Handerman, Mrs. Fukashan, and Mrs. Christofferson. And what options do we have? Well, it populates on our website in different orders, which I think is great because it makes it quite browsable. And we can see there a little hodgepodge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a little bit of detail with each of the beginning level courses. But you can see everything from a high level literature course, my Spanish 3, beginning German, Lingua Latina for middle school age, Japanese, Biblical Greek, Biblical Hebrew, French, and high school Latin here. Japanese 1 and 2. My son is taking Japanese 1, one of my sons, this coming year. All right, so let's go ahead and look at, well, we'll start with my Spanish 1. Spanish and French being the two most popular choices for modern languages. So my Spanish 1 course, $600 a year, and it's a very practical, spoken sort of class. And the way my Spanish 1 is designed is for any student with a positive and engaged attitude to do well. Each student is graded on participation more than anything else. And then in Spanish 2 and Spanish 3, the ramp up is, well, it's pretty intense, if I do say so myself. But Spanish 1 is designed to be approachable. Course objectives. You should have a good understanding of beginning Spanish grammar and syntax when you're done, including all 4 tenses. That's something that's often not done for a beginning Spanish course in the first year. I say all 4 tenses. All 4 principal tenses of the indicative mood, as I write here. You'll have mastered a broad vocabulary, especially a ton of cognates. Translate and compose written Spanish every day, and be comfortable with speaking language, with speaking Spanish within the language that you've learned. So whatever it is that you've learned, you've not only read or memorized, but rather mastered its use to continue going forward from strength to strength. One of the things I do require that students purchase is a 1960 Reina Valera Spanish Bible, not bilingual, so just a straight-up Spanish Bible. And at the bottom of each course, you can actually read the bio for each teacher, so I encourage you to check that out. French 1, an enormously popular class. And it says here that I'm a Kepler admin. You're not going to see that when you're on the site. In another high school class, it meets twice a week, so that's something to take note of. Instead of one recitation for an hour and a half or 2 hours, it's 2 hour-long meetings through the week, which is, a good approach to language. It's good to get exposed often, so having 2 live meetings is a nice feature from Mrs. Fukashan. So Mrs. Fukashan, lived in France for many years and in Quebec as well. She's been a French teacher for many, many, many years. She's married to a French pastor and trained chef. And so they integrate a little bit of that into the course. So you'll see here, well, from the first day of class on, you will begin reading French through the phonetic method. Fantastic. I would love to hear from Mrs. Fukush on how the phonetic method works in a language where half of the letters are silent in each word, but I'll just leave that there. Gauntlet tossed. But yeah, here, the teacher's husband will take you twice into the Fukushan's kitchen for a French culinary adventure, which is so cool. All right, so there are videos to watch, etc. What are the objectives of this course? To learn to love the French language. I love that. That is the first thing that any course description for a language should say. Really, I mean, loving whatever it is you're learning, but learning through a sense of obligation. And I think that's one of the things that a Spanish class can sometimes suffer from, right? People choose Spanish because it's practical and for no other reason. They have to get a language credit out of the way. And I sure hope that you as a student are approaching whatever language you're learning, not just because you have to, but because it's cool. So to learn to love the French language, to open the doors to worthy French literature as a student begins to read French, to acquire a beginning knowledge of French grammar and vocabulary, to converse, to catch a long-term vision for future fluency. Well said, Mrs. Fukushan. And to begin to understand and love the French people. All right. You can see all the books are listed there. You'll go over the Apostles' Creed, which we do in my Spanish class as well. I think is very cool. So that's French 1. And I encourage you to read Mrs. Fukushan's bio. She's a super cool lady. All right, Japanese 1. This is a course that one of my sons is taking. So I have one son in Spanish, one son in Latin, and one son in Japanese. So the son who's taking Japanese has actually just graduated. He's taking a class in pedagogy from Dr. Woods through Kepler. He's getting a teaching English as a second language certificate through a Christian ministry. And he is studying Japanese because he is interested in possibly going to teach English abroad. All right. I think it's kind of fun that the picture, Mrs. Sanders had nothing to do with this, but the picture that we chose to put up here is a German map of Japan and Korea there. I love that. All right, so Japanese 1, meeting once a week, as is normally done, taught by Tomoko Sanders, a Japanese teacher in Utah. All right, so at the beginning, students will learn hiragana and katakana, the Japanese alphabet, pronunciation of basic greetings. So I believe that there are 3 alphabets, or I shouldn't say alphabets, orthographies that are standard in Japanese. A lot of you guys, especially you teens who may be into anime, will know better than I, but I believe there are 3, and there are 2 you're looking at here. You will learn scripture verses in Japanese, which I think is super cool. All right, so course objectives. And this is a simple, straightforward description. Students will be able to converse in Japanese and use the simple elements they have learned from this course to possibly pursue a long-term vision for future fluency and to begin to understand Japanese. I actually sort of appreciate that there are modest goals laid out here for this course. And Mrs. Sanders has a BA in Japanese linguistics from Osaka International College, and she lives in Ogden, Utah, where she homeschools. All right. Biblical Greek. And Mr. Postma, I'm sure, is going to have words with me for holding out the classical languages for last. And I say classical, actually German is still coming, but I started with modern languages. Yes, I did. All right, so Biblical Greek, taught by Stephen Belk. Renaissance Christian authors describe the best of culture as flying on 2 wings, Latin and Greek. So a lot of you on this classical Christian platform are going to be looking at Latin, have done Latin in middle school, junior high. Greek is a great sequence, a great follow-up to that. So here is a wonderful sentence. Indeed, for many students who have already worked with Latin for a while, it may be a welcome and edifying experience to tackle the Greek dialect in which the New Testament was written. So this is a class specifically about, well, maybe it's actually not specifically about Koine. So that mentions the New Testament, but it is called Biblical Greek. So who knows? Maybe you'll hit the Septuagint I'm actually not sure with this course. Course objectives: to learn and recall a few hundred common Greek nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and prepositions, to be able to recognize and work in the present and perfect future first aorist and second aorist. So I love that this course is ambitious about taking on various tenses. Of course, having the scriptures to work from. Scriptures are very naturally written, so you're going to naturally run into all of these tenses and all these voices. To recognize and work with the Greek verbs in active, middle, and passive voice, to practice and hone techniques of translating Greek into good idiomatic English. That's actually a useful skill for any language work. Idiomatic, like understanding how to make a translation natural but still be faithful. And then to gain the ability to sight read extended portion of the New Testament in Koine Greek with minimal grammar and vocabulary help. Now, I have trained myself to be able to hesitantly read in the Greek alphabet, but I've never actually studied Greek. I imagine it would be delightful to be able to open a Greek New Testament and simply read it. And one of the things that happens with a lot of education in Greek, like people go to seminary, etc., is that really what they're learning to do is to use reference works. They're not actually learning the language. And this class is going to help you do that, which I think is absolutely wonderful. Also, a high school course. A course that's available for both junior high and high school is the Beginner's German. And this has a fascinating course description. So with Beginning German, it's open for any age that Kepler accepts, taught by Mr. Benjamin Lucas. So this course will provide a foundation to German for someone new to the language or with limited pre-existing knowledge. Great. So it's a beginning class. Now, the second paragraph is fascinating. As a Christian teacher, I wish to point out that I have nowhere been able to find a curriculum that does not require me to constantly filter through statist and humanist filth. I love that he put filth on the Kepler course description to acquire fluency in the language itself. And hey, y'all, German, think of the 19th century. German was the principal language to begin to pull Christianity down in the West. The gospel will triumph, have no fear. But yeah, it is the original language of liberalism and unorthodoxy and falling away in the West. So what gives? Why would I want to study German? Well, it's also the language of Luther, which he doesn't say here, but he addresses this is a question I would have studying German. Every textbook that I have found embeds to varying depths an unbiblical worldview into its topical texts, listening activities, speaking prompts, and additional resources. There's both an absence of wholesome and nourishing material and promotion of ideological topics, which makes language learning a significant threat to the undiscerning and still forming young mind. To remedy this, students will follow a curriculum that I have personally curated to avoid pollution of the mind and enflesh the bones of language. I love that. Enflesh the bones of language with edifying resources and commentary. Each pupil will develop linguistic ability in German alongside a worldview exploration of the German-speaking world, which would be absolutely fascinating. I think combining a beginner's German course with an apologetics course would be such a butt-kicking way to do like your junior or senior year. He wants to produce confident bilinguists, which is a great way of putting it, with reinforced biblical worldviews and enriched insight into a fascinating language and culture. So I know I basically just read the whole course description, but I love this course description. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And then there's a note. A diligent and mature, even 9 or 10-year-olds willing to do the work is a suitable candidate for the class. And then here is an example of what Kepler is all about. Access to the language app/website. Memorize will be required. I leave this at parental discretion. So really, we want to be responsive to parents. Kepler is a platform for homeschoolers, for any family, really. But like we are homeschoolers for homeschoolers. And while our courses are designed by the teachers and they're going to be made the way they're made, the teachers work with families. So leaving it at parental discretion. So, great little bio here, which I encourage you to read on your own. He's got a bachelor's degree in modern foreign languages, German and Russian. So maybe we can pull Mr. Lucas into teaching Russian sometime. Okay, here we have Biblical Hebrew taught by Mr. Handerman. This one is $500 for the year, 1 hour long meeting per week. Have you ever wished that you could read the Bible in the original language? Great stuff. And I love the name of this text, this curriculum, Aleph with Beth. How great is that? Kudos to Beth, I suppose, who created this, but awesome. Best of all here, even a child can begin learning Hebrew the way this curriculum does it. My 4-year-old wants to learn Hebrew. You can check out their videos for yourself. Well, what do you need a teacher for? This is a great Kepler question. Our classes will provide extra exercises, tests, and accountability to help you reach your language learning goals. And anyone who has studied a language knows that accountability is, well, it's a big deal. So we will use stories, readings, and grammar from the First Hebrew Primer, which provides lots of simple Hebrew exercises and stories to prepare you for reading the Bible. So what are the objectives? Read the Hebrew alphabet, learn common vocabulary words, speak simple sentences, compose simple sentences, and translate simple Hebrew prose from the book of Ruth. In both my Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 courses, what I look forward to the most is getting to the point in the year where we're working in the Bible. I absolutely love that. So I love that we can do this here in this Hebrew course, and it's in Hebrew, which is so cool. All right, Latin. Mrs. Harlow, what a treasure she is. She is teaching Lingua Latina Prima for grades 5 through 8, so middle school, junior high. This class will teach Timothy Griffith's innovative Picta Dicta curriculum using both the online platform and accompanying textbook Latin primer. So what are the objectives? Here's another nice, straightforward, boom, boom course description. So you're going to learn Latin vocabulary through pictures and stories. If you're not familiar with Picta Dicta, check out their website. It's what other language apps should have been, and it's great that there's one. That this has been made for Latin. Learn Latin grammar by seeing the patterns and using it in the context of pictures and stories. So the Picta Dicta approach is to teach Latin as a living language, as a spoken language, which is really how you need to learn a language. I mentioned earlier, when people study Greek as adults, they often aren't really learning the language. It is learning to use resources to make their way through Greek texts. Greek scholars actually learn it as if it were a living language. And this is really the only way to truly learn and live in the language. And don't you want to do that for Latin? So I highly recommend Picta Dicta, which I also use in my high school level course, which also will use the Familia Romana reader, which I absolutely love. I've used it myself. So languages, history, poetry, etymology, or texts about sieges and self-immolations, this is the course for you. I believe that's all the courses I wanted to highlight. Now, as a reminder, those are the beginning level courses. Okay, so there's Spanish 2 and Spanish 3. There's French 2 from the inimitable Mrs. Kari Christofferson. And then there is also Japanese 2. So there are more advanced courses. So even when you're thinking about what class to enroll in, you might say, well, what has follow-ups? And maybe, hey, you know what? A bunch of people sign up for German. We can have German 2 as well as Russian next year. I think that would be fabulous. So I know it's been a longish video. I'm going to make others about these departments, and some of them may be even longer. I hope you all enjoy this sort of content and find it helpful. At Kepler, we want to make the experience really personable, personal, relatable, and engage where we can be engaged with each other. Okay, so what I mean by that is talk to us. Right? We don't want you to simply treat this website like it's an abstract catalog or like it's a list. Flesh and blood advisors, flesh and blood teachers who want to know who you are and work with you. So reach out to me, reach out to Mrs. Christofferson, reach out to the teachers. If you go into any class, you will see that, as the page loads, you can get right in touch with the teacher, right? So just about the teacher, click on View Profile, and their profile will have an email address. So I encourage you, there it is, Contact. So it would be absolutely wonderful if you just email the teachers directly as well. And when you do that, if you're emailing anyone at Kepler, I encourage you to copy me, because I want to know what's going on with your family and your pursuit of education. And I'd love to be able to contribute here or there. Sometimes the teachers get asked a question that they don't know the answer to, and I do. And of course, very often, I get asked questions that I don't know the answer to, and we have to go off to the teacher. So I encourage you to write both of us in the same email. And as always, you can make an appointment with me. I'll put the link below in the video. We can hang out on Zoom and talk through your family's choices. All right, y'all. Peace of Christ be upon you.